This next Zoom segment is somewhat challenging because I realize that many people viewing it or listening to it have not had any biology or chemistry training, much less biochemistry and zoology and botany, which you learn that the metabolism in the plant kingdom in many ways is parallel to that in the animal kingdom. And in fact, many of the small animals, such as mammals, have identical cascades of biochemistry that is present in the human. And unfortunately, human physicians in their training negate a lot of the research that is done in animals that are applicable to what happens in humans, but much cheaper and less expensive research can be done in animals that reflects positively on what happens in the humans, especially when it comes to the vital role of nutrition in the metabolism of humans. And so in this next lecture, I hope to share with individuals some important information because what you think and know influences all the cells in your body. The best proof of this is the links that organized medicine will go to try to eliminate the power of the mind, which is oftentimes called placebo effect. And the placebo implies false, but it is not false. It is the power of the mind to influence all the cells and organs in the body in either a positive or a negative manner. And I think it's important to try to get across to individuals that are seeking better health knowledge that can be processed by their mind, the function of the brain, that has potentially very good impact on what the benefits you get from more comprehensive nutrition. So we will go into an example of how cells communicate with other cells, focusing primarily on skeletal muscle cells. Thank you. We're going to use the activity of the skeletal muscles that when you use them, that they produce small molecules that are carried in the serum that I try to get across the idea. More and more people don't remember that we used to have IBM cards that the electric company would send to you, and you'd write on there what your uh, electrical meter said, and it would send it back in, and the people would punch that card to put that information in there that you would run it into the computer, and the computer could interpret these dots or little holes in the cards. Well, the cells of the body don't have IBM cards, of course, but they run small molecules that are called cytokines as a group, meaning cell in the kind from the word kinetic, cell activators, that these cells, the order of the molecules in them, are information that it can be sent from one group of cells to another group of cells, and a lot of this communication is going on. And in your textbooks, sometimes it says that cells talk to each other. Well, that's a poor use of the word talk because that implies a auditory activity, and there's no sound or auditory effect to this. It's more like braille, that the receptors on the cells can receive these cytokines and its information shared. And we will be showing arrows that cytokines are produced by the muscles going to other organ cells. But in fact, everywhere you see an arrow going, there are cytokines released in response to these cytokines that go back to wherever they come from. So we will proceed with this. And for thousands of years, those that wrote essays and opinions, such as Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, said to be the wisest of all men from ancient Greece, in the Hebrew scriptures, and many others had a premise of what we would call monoism, or an integrated oneness regarding the mind, body, and spirit. There were all aspects of an integrated person and not separate entities. The parts were of the whole being of this attitude. However, in France, a philosopher, Descartes, provided these qualities into the mind and body. In other words, the body, we got the brain, but the function of the brain is the mind. And so this introduced the idea of separateness, or dualism became a common thought. And Sigmund Freud, with his insights into trying to figure out why humans behaved and acted the way they did, went even further in this, dividing the mind into the id, the ego, and the superego. So separatism was flourishing rather than all the parts being part of the whole body. Well, it's interesting that modern science inquiry finds that the human body is quite complex and an integrated single entity, an individual, that all cells and organs communicate and interact by cytokines that I call cyto for cell and kines for action or activators, that increase, decrease, or modify, very important, the word modify, the target cell's capacity to function. And we're talking about the target cells in all the different organs. And evidence is accumulating that the human body is composed of trillions of cells, and that it is a monistic or integrated or single entity within all organs working together and communicating, and not a collection of separate parts or individual organs. That all cells in all organs function together. And I hope I get this across to you, that this is reality that's coming apart. And we're going to focus on the skeletal muscles, because this is just too vast to go into all the different tissues and organs of the body, because the bone marrow, the hearts, the kidneys, the bones, the GI tract cells, the lungs, and all the organs and release cytokines. And while at times they've been regarded as separate and independent organs, they all work together. And the muscles, the skeletal muscles we're talking about, and not the smooth muscles that are particularly in the wall of the bowel, that the skeletal muscles of the arms and legs were once thought to only by leverage move tendons attached to the bones, and that the only function was for movement or locomotion. But that's a past concept that is becoming a too narrow a concept of what the muscles do. And what we're going to use as an example of the skeletal muscles can be made for each organ's function, that they release cytokines that influence other cells, and other cells return messages to the organ cells. And the evidence is accumulating that the skeletal muscles are very influential in the cellular function of all organs of the body. And these cytokines, which act as either activators or suppressors, and the term modulation is further expanding the understanding how the body really functions, which I'm trying to get across in this lecture. Now, I give here examples of cells under the microscope at about, 1,000 magnification, and you can see the skeletal muscles, particularly. I don't know whether you can see my pointer or not, but this is the nucleus. When you get a cross section, this is on the side, and you can't really tell that there's a whole lot of cell structure that the nucleus is servicing compared to other cells, because in the thyroid gland, this is pools of thyroxine, but they're just a little cuff of cytoplasm around the nucleus, and there's not as much cytokine production by the thyroid as, say, skeletal muscles, which we're functioning on, because there's so much cellular structure here to be receiving and sending cytokine messages. And here's the adrenal gland, and this is not quite 1,000 magnification, but you can see many nuclei in very little cytoplasm around them. And though the adrenal cortex makes primarily hormones, it's not as active as skeletal muscles or the thyroid. Here is the kidney cell, and this is one of the tubules where the urine is accumulated to particularly balance of the fluid in the body, working together with the pituitary. And you can again see that a lot of the cell structure is the nucleus with a modest amount of cytoplasm around it. And the same is for the gut lining cells, but all of these cells produce cytokines, but you can see that the skeletal muscle has an awful lot of cellular structure to explain what I'm going to be showing you. Now, why did I go into this? Well, in our research that started with Carrington Laboratories in the early 1980s, we were seeking the bioactive molecule in the plant gel of the leaves, which is unfortunately about 98 to 99% water and only 1 to 2% solids. And in this solids are over 250 different metabolic molecules, but the active principle that we found out in our research that is the basis for 5,000 years that aloe has been used topically and inside the body to support good health. And the Carrington Laboratories was so sure that once they found the active ingredient that it would be approved as a FDA molecule, a new drug, that there are three phases of new drug development, and they had 10 academic institutions working on all the stages of FDA approval. And the company was only formally in the first phase, which is toxicity. And since these academic institutions were working on it, they found out that 9 molecules of the aloease mannan or acetylated mannose are utilized in cellular synthesis in the second major step in cell synthesis to make a cell membrane domain. And this domain on the cell membrane is in all organs to facilitate cell-to-cell communication and provide instructions for maintaining balance, harmony, and this is a process that has been called homeostasis, as described by the father of human physiology, Dr. Hans Selye. Now, this homeostasis is metabolic modulation because it can increase or decrease the function and levels of bioactivity in the compounds in any cell in seeking this balance and harmony. And the question arises, how does this domain receive information to increase or decrease the metabolic activity within an organ's cells? And this presentation attempts to provide the answer. There's a ubiquitous release of cytokines that can carry messages to all the cells and all the organs that basically can inform them that the target cells that they're providing cytokines to can inform the cells to activate genes to increase or genes to decrease the metabolic activity of the organ cells. And I like to use the thyroid as a great example because the thyroid makes a gland makes a molecule that is released into the serum that it's kind of like the accelerator on a car. It increases the metabolism or slows it. People with hyperthyroidism have an increased heart rate. They have sweaty palms and they sweat easily. Their temperature of the body oftentimes a little higher. Their smooth muscle of their bowel tends to be very active for peristalsis. And the cells just are much more active in hyperthyroidism. And if you take the knee and you take a hammer and you try the reflexes, it will be hyperactive, whereas just the opposite is present in hypothyroidism. And people have a low heart rate. They feel cold a lot of the time. Constipation is more of a common thing. Hair growth is sparse and everything is slowed down. What you want is euthyroid, and these cytokines from all the cells feed back and impact the cell membrane of the thyroid to move and turn on the genes to get in the normal zone. In this presentation, I'm attempting to use the muscles to provide the answer to how does this domain on the cells know how to either increase or decrease or modulate the function of the cell of the organ. And the ubiquitous cytokines carry such message to and from all the different cells, is the opinion that I'm offering you. Now, here is an example of a skeletal muscle in the middle. And each one of these arrows it represents effects it's having on the skin of the body, on the blood vessels, on the brain, the bones, the liver, the pancreas, the bowels, the kidneys, the bone marrow where the macrophages and the erythrocytes are, and also in the fat stores of the body. But each of these arrows going to these organs, there's also an arrow coming back of cytokines that as you use the muscle more, it hypertrophies and you get more muscular uptake and you consume more glucose, which can be very desirable. And the metabolism of the muscle increases as it interacts with all these different organs. And the next slide is a little more detailed with actually showing that from the literature, we have the cytokine that has been identified, and they're interleukins, they're chemokines, they're growth factors, and stimulating molecules and suppressing molecules that affect because, and as you might know, there are over 600 different cytokines released by the skeletal muscles in the legs, thighs, arms, and shoulders that influence other organs. These little tiny molecules in the serum that are able to inform this domain in on the membrane of each cell, whether to increase or decrease the bioactive molecules that are present in these different organs. And the number one cytokine that skeletal muscles release is brain-derived neural growth factor. And this is thought to possibly be the molecule that people talk about, the runner's high, that it's very stimulating, pardon me, to the function of the brain, and people are more alert, imaginations are better, their function is better because this cytokine from exercise is good for the function of the brain that we're trying to get across. And one of the things I want to stress here that each of these molecules that are being sent out as messages or cytokines require nutrient molecules to be able to make these information molecules to either send the message to and to receive it. And even the receptors for these cytokines are made from molecules that are supplied in the diet, and also they're finding out that the large bowel bacteria make molecules that are absorbed into the serum that you don't find in the diet, that they're made by the molecules in the bowel that utilize what you're eating to make these molecules. And one of the big ones in this area is a vitamin B12 that is made by organisms in the large bowel. And this is an increasing area of research in human beings, that all these different cytokines work together for harmony of function in all organs of the body. And I want to go a little further with the myokines, because researchers have found, if you notice on the left here, it says high load, low repetition, and that means lifting weights. That this causes activation of genes in the pathway that's called mTOR, and myostatin and other molecules are produced for cytokines. That's the names of them there. Whereas contrasted with this, you can have exercise where there's not much load. It's range of motion of, say, your arms or your legs, and this repetition. And this stimulates another group of genes, and it shows you there the uh, AMPK pathway of different cytokines that are released into the serum. And one of the important things about the repetition is it causes more mitochondria to be made in the cells, particularly in the muscle cells, in addition to the hypertrophy that the high load causes. And so the weight exercise increases muscle hypertrophy, and the aerobic exercises releases other cytokine molecules that activate energy pathways, particularly working on the mitochondria to produce more ATP. And what you need to know and always remember is this bottom thing, that both forms of muscle activity require nutrients in the diet to assemble the cytokines that we are emphasizing, little molecules that inform the domain on the cells of to either increase or decrease. This weight training, even more research is being done in different laboratories. And this is just some of the detailed of cytokines that are being released, that are the benefits of the exercise, of the different kinds of cytokines that are released, that increases the muscle hypertrophy, as well as increasing the energy load, that all the organs function better with release of these cytokines, which again have to be made from nutrient molecules that are supplied in the diet and also come from the friendly bacteria in the large bowel. And this again gets over to the aerobic exercises where we don't go into heavy weight, but we activate cytokines that are in the energy producing spectrum of the body that increase metabolic activity of the cells and different organs. And you notice there are multiple organs again being influenced by these release of cytokines of inflammation that leads to homeostasis in all cells and all organs. And we could take each organ and put it right where we have muscles, and they're influencing other organisms, but we're just emphasizing the skeletal muscles, which is a huge amount of tissue in the human body, and more research is being done on it than probably any of the others. Well, again, why would I share this with you? That the more comprehensive nutrition that is in New Eden with the acetylated mannose, that if you take it with daily exercise, we have found out it increases the length of the telomeres in the chromosomes and the 46 chromosomes in each cell. The DNA have caps on the ends of each of the chromosomes. And the normal activity as you age, the telomeres get shorter because there's a preventive maintenance program written in the genes that up until probably 35 or approaching 40, things begin to slow down. And the bone marrow releases stem cells to migrate out, and that each cell, when it's made in the embryo or when growing up, has a polyadenate tail, which is a timer for how long that cell is to function. And for example, the cells of the GI tract are replaced about every 10 to 12 days. The skin is replaced about every 2 weeks. And the red cells are replaced about every 90 to 110 days. You won't have any red cells around that were that many days before, because these stem cells are released from the bone marrow for keeping these cells viable until you apparently in the program of life you have reproduced usually before you're 35 years old, and then you begin to slow down, and in fact the telomeres begin to shorten at this time. However, it is noted that animals with short lifetimes have short telomeres, and human beings that would say between 55 and 70 that tend to die of a chronic disease in their family have short telomeres. However, individuals that live to be 90 independently and are very alert and can take care of themselves and live past 100 have long telomeres. Those families do, and good health. And animals with long lifetimes have long telomeres. Well, lo and behold, we found out that the active ingredient from the aloe plant, the acetylated mannose known as acemannan, elongates telomeres. And that's one of the benefits of taking this more comprehensive nutrition daily. You get this lengthening of your telomeres, which I will show you before we get through. And this is important because there is research that there were a series of 5 grants from the National Geographic Society to a individual that was to search for areas where the population have longevity and good health. And this was found, and they're called blue zones. And in these blue zones, you have longevity and good health is achieved. People living to their 90s in good health and independently, whereas it contrasts with the typical dietary abuses that people do and don't have a broad inventory of nutrient molecules, which the National Geographic Blue Zones is a high percentage of the diet is plants, is common denominator of all the blue zones. That doesn't mean they do away with all the animal diet. However, it's usually on special occasions and a small part of the diet because you can get certain nutrient molecules from animal tissue that's very hard to get in plants. However, they found out that the omega-3 fatty acids and other fatty acids that have been touted as being particularly available in salmon, if you have it in your diet, and also in liver from pigs, cows, and especially chickens provide nutrient molecules that lo and behold, we're finding out if you include in your diet walnuts and Brazil nuts, that what you're getting in salmon and meat can be provided. And it's very interesting that the plant kingdom provides nutrient molecules that the programming in the DNA of the animal kingdom require in cellular synthesis for optimal health. Well, this thing that I'm telling you about the benefits of aloes mannin, that it elongates your telomeres and you don't have to move to isolated islands or peninsulas where they don't have electricity or electric motors, and they have to not only have a high plant diet, and many of them have their own, nearly all of them have a personal garden, but they're very important to have activity because if you move in these areas where you don't have electricity or motors, you're operating your skeletal muscles that I've been showing you, the up to 600 cytokines that your skeletal muscles release that communicate with all the cells and improve the quality of life. So the two principal common denominators of the blue zones is a plant-based diet and body activity. And of course, in our modern society, this calls for exercise, and you get synergy. We have found out, as I will show you, that this improved nutrition that comes from having the ace mannin in your diet combined with an exercise program is synergistic. What do I mean by synergistic? Two plus two is more than four. And just how much of a magnification the combination is hard to estimate, but we're finding this out as I will show you. So these telomeres that are on the ends of your chromosomes are caps that protect the DNA from damage. And one of the protections is that free radicals cannot attach to or are protected from attaching to the DNA because any molecule attaching to the DNA alters the information that's there. And free radicals attaching to the membranes within the cell causes people not to feel good and more like fatigue and poor recovery from muscular activity. However, the worst damage that can come from free radicals is mutations when the free radical attaches to the DNA. you can get mutations, and the worst mutation is malignancy. What we mean by malignancy is either leukemia, lymphoma, cancer, or sarcoma. And these these telomere caps protect the DNA from these free radicals. And the length of telomeres is now the gold standard in anti-aging research. And as we said before, telomeres are long in people that live to be 100, and telomeres are short in those people that naturally aging and die from a chronic disease, say between 55 and 75, because they don't have the protection of the telomeres protecting their chromosomes. And as you probably know, with aging, the incidence of cancer increases because the telomeres are getting shorter and shorter and offer less protection to the DNA. Well, again, the aloe mannin that is in the New Eden dietary supplement formulation lengthens telomeres, and that the everyday taking aloe mannin with your diet markedly increases when you add exercise to it. And we are also finding that telomeres are shortened by serious and chronic disease, as I'll be showing you. Now, this is just a little more about the importance of the telomere caps on the ends of chromosomes that protect the chains of DNA, and that they naturally shorten with age, as you see from birth to age of an older adult. In the middle age, as these little caps get shorter. However, if you add to your diet these little caps, which are primarily made of nucleic acids, that you need to have a broad diet, that the chromosomes, these little caps that we show there, and what the nucleic acids are in them, that it follows the complementary nucleic acid binding, that adenine binds to the thymidine molecule, and the guanidine binds to the cytosine. And of course, in RNA, you have uracil instead of thymidine. And this is the biochemistry that has been found in the importance of telomeres. Now, we are slowly, because we don't have a grant, uh, getting information of people over 50 who've been taking the New Eden dietary supplement that contains the aloe mannin for at least 12 months. And you can see the left column there is the average telomere numbers of the nucleic acid. These numbers are the numbers of these nucleic acid units. And you can see the calendar age there, and that a person 82 years old who had been taking the New Eden dietary supplement with the with the chelated mannose or ace mannan in it, that the age with that telomere is about 20 to 30 years of age. And that's because of lengthening of the telomeres. Now, the second one there has a chronic skin infection that is difficult for medicine to deal with. And you notice he's 67, and yet his telomeres that are of a 70 to 80-year-old, he's about 20 years older. That chronic disease seems to shorten the telomeres. See the KB or kilobytes are reduced. And now we have the third one, which is 64 years old, and he's been taking the dietary supplement, and is sedentary for about 12 years, and it's about a 30 to 40, and the same for a 74-year-old. And then we come up to an individual that's 84 years of age, and even though they have been taking the aloe man in over a year, they have short telomeres because they have a very severe autoimmune disease, a chronic disease seems to shorten the telomeres, which is an unfortunate thing. Now we have an 85-year-old that is sedentary and has been taking the aloe mannin for at least 12 months, and their telomeres are that of a 30 to 40-year-old. If you notice that the kilobytes are 7.42, and then we have another one that's 71 years old, and he was exposed in Vietnam to Agent Orange, and he has lymphoma. He also had post-traumatic stress disorder, and lo and behold, his telomeres are short, like you would find in an 85 to 90-year-old, even though he's 70. Now we go to people that not only have taken the aloe mannin in their diet daily to increase the inventory of nutrient molecules using cellular synthesis. And if you notice, the kilobytes are high in all of these individuals that have a exercise program. And the first one was a 57-year-old that I think is a little bit crazy because he participates in triathlons and has even done the Ironman in Hawaii. And lo and behold, taking the LOA's Manning plus his conditioning program is to run a half marathon one week and 2 miles on a bicycle the alternate week. That is intense exercise, and his have long telomeres. See, that's 9.87 kilobytes. And the next one is 82 years old, and his is 10 to 20 years, and he was decades in special forces in Europe, and they had daily exercise, and he's been taking the New Eden on a regular basis, and then the next one was one that really threw me. It was a woman from Arizona that we sent in her blood for the uh, estimation or the analysis of her telomeres, and low it was 10.45. See, that's the highest of all of these values. And she's 72 years old. And when I saw this result, the first thing that it was her telomeres were that of a 5 to 10-year-old. My first thought was lab error. So I called the laboratory and asked if their controls and standards and all were on. And they said, yes, everything is right. We think that's the right value, 10.45. So with great hesitation, I phoned her to tell her how long her telomeres were, that of a 5 to 10-year-old individual. She said, well, that's interesting. I swim 3 miles a week, 3 times, and that's an intense exercise program to give you this synergism that I keep talking about. And the next one is a 73-year-old that the value came back in the nines for kilobytes, and a 10 to 20-year-old, and he walks his dog at least 2 to 4 times a day, 7 days a week, which is his ongoing exercise program. The next one is also a faculty member of the Miller School of Medicine, and he's PhD is in exercise physiology, and he's the director of a medical school gym, and he does routine gym exercises. And though he's 54 years old, again, he gets this synergism of the improved diet plus activity, which is exercise. And then we have another individual that says he walks about a mile a day, 20 to 25 times a month, or about 280 miles a year. And here he's got long telomeres. And this is just what we've got so far. And the medical school says I need between, well, originally we thought about 20 assays, but now that we're finding out this synergism between exercise and improved diet, they say we need about 30 to get into this. Well, as a finalization of this observation, that if you Google the sayings of Hippocrates, who his life was between 460 to 370 BC, he's called the father of Western medicine. If you Google his statements, you will find out one of them. It says, translated from the Greek, that if we could provide optimal nutrition and exercise, and we've been emphasizing the cytokines that come from the skeletal muscles that you exercise. And he says, not too much, not too little. This is the safest pathway to good health. And this was before our calendar even started. So what I'm telling you is not totally new information. It has been long known because also Hippocrates wrote that let your food be your medicine, your medicine your food. Uh, and scientific research is validating this ancient insight. And if you really want to find out how old this knowledge is, and unfortunately, as individuals who have recognized this die, this information seems to just fall away and be lost. And one of the reasons is that the sickness industry, made up of big pharma and conventional medicine, benefits from people being sick. But 5,000 years ago in Ezekiel 47:12, you'll find it was talking about the tree of life and the benefits of fruits and vegetables for food for human beings. And it ends with the leaves of the trees will be for medicine or healing, depending on what your translation is of this ancient scriptures from 5,000 years ago. Well, if that's too old for you to accept, in the New Testament that starts with the life of the carpenter from Galilee in Revelations 22:2. It speaks of the water that flows beneath the uh, throne that's inside the Holy of Holies in the Jewish temple. And the water that flows under this throne is so fertilizing, beneficial. It flows out down the streets to the rivers that go to the gardens and orchards, and that they produce every month. And it ends with the leaves of the trees will be for the healing of the nations. Well, that's what we've been involved in because we're talking about the leaves of the aloe plant that even in these scriptures, it's mentioned multiple times in the benefits of aloe. And to end this thing that I'm talking about, in the Texas, down at the University of Texas, was a pioneering researcher, a PhD biochemist named Roger J. Williams, and he wrote the book. Even though he wrote about 10 or 12 books, he wrote the book Nutrition Against Disease in 1971. It was first published before reprints came out. And in the first chapter, he says the human body heals itself and nutrition provides the resources to accomplish the task. And so in this lecture, we've pointed out that the cells of all the organs communicate with one another back and forth about their conditions, and that this domain on the surface of the membrane of all the cells that is for harmony and balance between all the cells, that is made up of non-molecules from the bioactive compound, uh, acemanin, that's the active molecule in aloe leaf gel that has up to a 5,000-year history, all the way back to the Egyptian formulations for good health, and that modern science is finding out more and more about this. Fact is, the scriptures that we've cited above also says that our bodies are mysteriously and wondrously made, depending on the translation that sentiment is repeated. And I can tell you that science is finding that our bodies are far more marvelously and wondrously made than science ever thought was possible. And it's being proven over and over again that this ancient statement is so true. And so that's the end of this lecture about how cells communicate with each other, utilizing and focusing on the skeletal muscles as they release information molecules that are received and interpreted by all the cells and all organs that are designed for good health, because the information in the genes of DNA is for normal health, and it must be supported with the inventory of nutrients that are utilized in cellular synthesis to make the bioactive compounds that carry out the biochemistry for normal health. Thank you.